You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of this shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 10th part of What If Deku Meets Bofuri. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Kuji 17 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. UA Sports Festival. West Tunnel. Pacing back and forth, the younger Ida brother was greatly worried about something, and that much was clear to his partner. Given he was from a hero family and had an older brother who was a pro-hero, most others would assume that would be his main concern at this moment. But Tsuyu knew better, and it was clear that his concern was about Himiko Toga, who he made clear he hated. In fact, she was spot on, albeit half right about why specifically he was upset about fighting her. His partner, noticing this, let out a thoughtful hum as she watched him, deciding now to speak up. "Are you still upset with her, Karo?" Tsuyu asked him, seriously considering surrendering if that was still the case. This was due to after she saw what Himiko did earlier on the replays and saw he was one good punch away from being at least crippled if not actually killed by her if he pressed her buttons. Ida pondered this for a moment, though sure of what his decision was but unsure of how to tell his partner. "Please listen carefully to what I have to say, as I would appreciate your input on it," he told, now both concerning and confusing her as to what kind of war declaration he has been holding back this whole time. UA Sports Festival. East Tunnel. While their opponents had been stressed over the feline and stallion-like girls, said girls were carefree as could be. To be more precise, Toga was taking a catnap up until they had to leave their room, resting her head on the lap of Tsunatori. As for Tsunatori, she was happily enjoying herself as she petted the cat girl, purring away in her sleep. "So cute, I'm jealous of your family getting to pet you like this every day," Tsunatori said in a delighted tone, humming blissfully unaware of her surroundings until the warning. This was when Himiko Toga's eyes fluttered open, with her flipping over and stretching her whole body out, letting out a yawn. The giggle that this got out of the American girl confused Himiko as she tilted her head. "What's so funny?" Himiko said, pouting in a very adorable way that very few could appreciate due to her usual unhinged smile/behavior. Pony simply smiled at this before shaking her head. "You really are like a really big cat sometimes. Now come on, no more time for cuddles, we need to go fight," she said, pumping her fists as they walked to the tunnel, seeing someone they did not expect to see there. But before Pony could tell Himiko to ask for her if the man was lost, her partner ran right up to him, giving him a big hug. "You're gonna watch my fight from here?" Himiko asked in surprise as she was not expecting him to wander around too much during the sports festival. "Ahaha. Of course I am, and I am so proud of you for getting so far in your first sports festival," All Might said as he let go of their hug, ruffling her hair a bit. Pony meanwhile just looked at them confused as to who he was to her partner, but could tell it was not a moment to interrupt for such a simple question. Though she had a few guesses as to who he was, one of which made this truly sweet but also confusing. "And no, we're going to win our first fight as well, just you wait and see," Himiko told him, happy and growing closer to him since he gave her one for all. It also helped that compared to her actual father, he has actually showed her the affection she wanted from a parent while still being strict, well, as strict as he could be. He was still lenient compared to her two mothers, but he still knew the clear difference between forcing her to suppress her bloodlust and teaching her to control it. "Well, I suggest you two get going, and good luck to you as well, young Tsunatori," All Might told them as he patted them both on the back while nudging them to the field entrance. UA Sports Festival. Center Field. The crowd was excited for this fight, as it had two big names in the hero world. One of which was rather new. The Ida family was well known among the citizens as they had been a hero family for generations. Despite being mutant types, they were not persecuted for it as it did not affect their overall appearance by much. As a result, they became somewhat disconnected to the mutant quirk community they started in before reaching their current fame. As for Himiko, though her actual last name was well known, not in a good way anymore. She was more well known as the second adoptive daughter of Mirko and Midnight, so her adoptive family was known just as much but in a very different way than the Ida family. As it was considered more of an orphanage for the strong or talented due to Izuku's skill with support gear and his company. Coming from the Western Tunnel are the Frog Princess of Class 1A, and the Turbo-Charged Rule Lover. Tsuyu Asui and Tenya Ida. Midnight declared as she pointed to them, slightly concerned for the serious demeanor of Ida and the usual blank look of Asui's face. Once the crowd died down a bit she introduced the next team, as well as her own daughter. Coming from the Eastern Tunnel, the busty appealing Bronco and the slender feline Fatale. Pony Tsunatori and Himiko Toga. Midnight called out, not wanting to call her daughter small-chested. Especially after she was told by All Might. According to him, receiving it at a young age will affect her body growth and cause her development in that specific area to decline. Something he was apparently warned of by his former MSTR/teacher when she gave it to him in case he ever gave it to a young lady rather than a young man like they did. Of course, her daughter was worried at first, but after Maple told her she would always be cute without Big Bub, she was happy again. Happy enough to drag Maple to their bedroom where the adults chose to ignore the noises heard from behind the door to it. Before Midnight could check if both sides were ready, Ida walked forward with powerful and clearly aggressive strides. Himiko Toga. He called out, making the audience go silent at this odd action. You need to hear what I have to say to you before we fight. Ida now said in a much quieter tone compared to before now that the audience was quiet. This made all the teachers and Himiko's own partner worry about what was to come in a few seconds. Competitor Ida, you must return to your side of dash, Midnight began before getting cut off by her daughter, much to her surprise. I understand, I will listen to what you have to say. Himiko said with a calm yet clearly annoyed confidence as she walked forward towards the center of the ring where Ida was. While walking, Pony had grabbed her arm, pulling her back as she gave a desperate look, shaking her head. Trust me, I can keep it together. So just wait back here for me, she said to her friend, feeling she had to confront Ida on her own, whatever insults he tries to hurl at her publicly. Once she got just out of arm range of him, she stopped so she wouldn't immediately punch him if she lost her temper. Due to both her surprise and the surprise of all of the UA staff, it was not what they expected him to say. I am sorry. He yelled as he did a very bow to her. What? Was the only thing Himiko could say or think due to how surprising this was. I rushed to my judgment of you and took out my shame and anger on you. Not only was it unbecoming of me as a person, especially as a future hero, but I should have given you a fair chance rather than instantly deciding I was right about you. Ida told her. The entire staff, and Nizu in particular, was happy that he was wrong about his calculations about the younger Ida brother. As for Himiko herself, she was genuinely impressed with him and remembered when All Might told her to learn to forgive those who properly seek her forgiveness. This of course was about her other BLD family members like cousins and uncles or aunts who tried to reach out to her after Mirko adopted her. But despite not being ready to talk to them, she was at least ready to give Ida another chance. Standing up from his bow, he took a breath to steady his tone. When we were fighting during the recent incident, I could have used my quirk to rush to All Might aid, but I froze up. My fear got the better of me but not you. You did not hesitate to risk your life to save him, and in that regard you are a far better hero than I am. He continued to talk, shocking everyone in the crowd, the students, and the teachers with the reveal that he almost let All Might die. Well, it shocked most people among those groups. Himiko, her siblings, and her mothers, as well as a few others including All Might understood. They understood that for most people, courage was to be cultivated and not instinctive like it was for all of them. So those who understood this, did not judge him too much for this, Himiko especially given how she was the one who knew the exact struggle of that fear in the moment they spoke of. Originally I planned on apologizing to you for not being able to surrender to you to make amends to you, on account of the partner system they added. But since Tsu had agreed to let us surrender if I promised my family help to guarantee an internship offer for her. If you want us to, we will surrender so you will be guaranteed to make it to round 2. Ida said, making Himiko look around at Tsuyu who simply nodded yes. For the frog girl, it was not an issue if they surrendered as she trusted his word and family reputation. But if his surrender was a major leap in the right direction with Himiko, then she was willing to do so. But the response from the cat-like blonde was one she was not expecting given her dislike of Ida up till now. No thank you. Himiko said, giving him a silly smile, causing him and the audience to gawk at her passing up the chance for a guaranteed win. Giggling at this as she covered her mouth she spoke up after closing his jaw. I accept your apology and appreciate the thought behind your offer. But if I win, I want to win because me and my partner beat you and Tsu-chan. So, get ready for me to make you two croak for me. I'm especially good with making sweet little princesses like your croak, so should really prepare your butt for me. Himiko continued her response, aiming the last sentence at Tsuyu. This made the frog girl croak in a mix of fear and embarrassment as she blushed at this. Unsure if it was the usual death threat that saying people croak meant, or if it was SXLHRSSMNT as she knew Himiko was into girls more than guys, at least she was pretty sure of that. In reality, this was due to Himiko getting desensitized by midnight, so she did not realize how flirty this may have sounded. I understand, then let's do our best. Ida said, extending a handshake that Himiko gladly accepted. Walking back to both their original sides of the fields, the two got into battle-ready stances alongside their partners. With this, there was only one thing left to do for midnight. 1. Ida got into a defensive stance. 2. Himiko got into an offensive stance. 3. Tsuyu got into her best jumping position. 4. Pony took a deep breath, getting into a charging stance. 5. The majority of the crowd gulped at the tension. 6. The League of Villains were now excited to see what she could do in a proper fight that was not overcrowded. 7. The HPSC board members watched closer than most. Deciding to use the youngest Ida boy as a primary test for her current combat abilities in order to make future predictions more accurately. 8. Overhaul tapped his fingers on his desk, wondering what advancement he would see in her disease, quirk. 9. All for One watched the fight even more closely than the HPSC, as he had a similar goal. The only difference was that he knew the truth of her current quirk and was able to make a more accurate estimation of her power output. 10. All Might had to remind himself to breathe, as he was nervous by the idea of his successor fighting her true first battle with the quirk he gave her. Begin. Midnight declared, secretly hoping her daughter would win, despite her promise to be neutral. Kicking off the battle, Ida used his quirk to rush forward while maintaining his defensive stance so as to block his opponent's charge. Himiko dashed with all her strength, with one fist pointed forward while the other was held behind her. Tsuyu had jumped up far above their heads, ready to grab onto one of them and pull herself in for a double kick from above to help Ida push her back. Finally, was Pony, who charged forward right behind her teammate, intent to use her horns and body to lock Ida in place if he somehow repelled her. With the first moves made, the direction the battle would take was mostly decided. Though Tsuyu and Pony might be able to change it with their second move, the next moments were critical in the eyes of those who knew better. As expected of the two charging leaders of their teams, the clash sent a shock wave blowing strong winds throughout the crowd. Even without his armor, Ida's physical bulk was still enough to hold his ground against her attack. This was due to Himiko only using 15% of her overall power so as to pace herself for the whole tournament. Even so, he was able to stop her charge and catch her small fists, while straining his arms they did not break. Seeing from above, Tsuyu was able to see her cocked back fist and realized that was her real attack with his hands busy. Shooting her tongue down, she aimed for her partner instead, pulling herself down for a powerful kick. This kick met the pulled back fist rather than striking Himiko directly, stopping the clearly planned uppercut that would have broken through Ida's defensive stance due to a small gap. This however did nothing more than push Himiko back, which the girl backflipped to make sure she did not crash into her teammate's attack. The attack that she avoided was a straightforward but maximum power charge as she sent Ida with his partner in his shoulder flying back. Fortunately for him, Tsuyu's strong legs helped with his back flip, so they were able to rebuild their formation as he stood in front with her crouching on the ground behind him. Holy SHT. Now that is what I call a two-punch combo. Kick his butt, sweetie. Mirko. Letting out a sigh, Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose upon hearing this. How many times do I have to tell you to restrain the motherly part of you while commentating or judging? But that aside, you are right. Though it is a simple tactic of throwing a straightforward punch to lure the enemy to block or catch it with both hands. Then following through with an uppercut through a small gap in the defenses, it is indeed a dangerous attack and one that would have won her the fight in a one-on-one. Aizawa said dryly as he broke down for the audience the true intricacy and efficiency of this simple-looking attack. The audience, who was amused by Mirko acting like a doting mother, was blown away by the multiple layers of thought put into just running and punching someone. The heroes among the audience were impressed that the first year had such an in-depth understanding of the basics of close-quarters combat. That was dangerous, Ida. One wrong move and we would have been knocked out of the battle with one attack from them. Tsuyu told him, not wanting to let those two keep up their attack. I agree, let's go in and attack before they break our defensive stance again. Ida told her, looking back to see her nod to him as she stared forward with resolve to attack. What should we do next to attack? Pony asked her partner, not sure what else they could do as a combo strike given their quirks. We won't, I will let Ida take his turn to attack us and give him a chance to show his stuff, so let's focus on defense. Himiko told her, surprising the American quirk user as she was shocked to hear Himiko not wanting to press the attack. Himiko's family in All Might, however, understood her intentions fully, wanting to give Ida a chance to show physical abilities now that he has shown his character. Ida charged forward, not igniting his engines until he was halfway to them. Even then he only ignited them for a second at half strength as got into a sliding position. This caught the two girls off guard, but Pony did not hesitate to launch her horns towards Ida, hoping to get him to veer off course. Ida however was expecting this and jumped off the ground, igniting his engine at full strength now, making even the fast reflexes of Himiko unable to move out of the way in time. That left her with the need to cross her arms to block the attack, but before she could try to grab and throw him she was pushed again. This push came from Tsuyu using the combination of her maximum length lunge, as well her tongue to attach herself to Ida, had pulled to and pushed against him. This would have succeeded in pushing Himiko out of the ring due to their combined weight if not for Pony using her horns to catch her, bringing her to their back as they ran to the other side of the ring. Well, colored me impressed. I did not expect that stuffy legacy kid to pull out a tricky attack like that. He may win this fight yet. Mirko said with a whistle and a SHT-eating grin that everyone could tell was on her face based on the tone of her voice. I am also quite impressed. My impression of him since the beginning of the year was that of a child who saw the world as black and white, as such having no idea of what it meant to be a hero. But it is clear that he has realized that a hero does whatever it takes to save lives even if it does not look heroic like the public wants it to. Even so, this will still be a strong battle for him to overcome even with his partner's help. Aizawa said with a genuine sense of respect for Ida, not holding back on the truth of what he thought of him. But he also made sure to point out his growth and to remind the audience not to hold heroes to an unrealistic expectation. Though the audience could not understand why the pro-heroes in the audience looked shocked. It was because they knew full well how strong it was to impress Aizawa like Ida did. So now he had even more heroes considering him for internships as he had more than his family name now attached to him. Thanks for the save, it would have been a ring out if not for you. Himiko told her, happy her partner was ready to support her reckless decisions. No problem, I was worried that might happen, so I saved my horns to help you rather than counterattack. Pony responded while looking forward as she was running with Himiko on her back. Using a mix of air blasts with Himiko flicking her fingers at 25% power and pony horn attacks. They effectively kept a good distance from Ida and Tsuyu who ran after them attempting to close the distance while Tsuyu clung to his back. Ida even managed to deflect a few horns with an engine-boosted kick, but still missed them due to Pony constantly running. This went on for a few minutes, and the match was exciting for everyone to watch. But soon both teams were reaching their limits and had no choice but to end it with one final attack. So, letting out a final yowl as she jumped off her partner, Himiko went into cat mode and charged at Ida and Tsuyu full force. Each step and push of her palms on the ground cracked it, scaring Ida and Tsuyu as they realized how much she was holding back till now. We are about to enter a world of pain, Kero. Tsuyu said as she shrunk further behind Ida as all he could do was charge with his engines at full throttle. Ida hoped that his maximum strength kick could strike her down, so he used his super move, something that he knew Himiko was also using right now. Recipro burst. He called out as he met her leap through the air with a roundhouse kick. The result was a powerful clash that resulted in both being sent flying back. Sadly, for the team of Ida and Tsuyu, Pony was chasing right behind Himiko, using her horns as a support to catch her before launching said horns. This allowed Himiko to strike Ida a second time, knocking him out cold as he slammed against the ground. Though Tsuyu did make an attempt to escape by jumping high, Himiko used Ida as a springboard to jump into the air after her to strike her down into her partner. Looking over the downed students to confirm, she saw that they were indeed knocked out. The winners are Himiko Toga and Pony Tsunatori. Midnight declared as medical bots took the defeated two students and the two winners returned where they came from. Just as he said, he was waiting for them there, resulting in a very happy Himiko. We did it! Himiko exclaimed as she ran up to hug him. That you did, my girl. All Might responded as he received her hug, patting her head. This must be what it feels like to be a father. He thought to himself, thinking back to how he wasted his chance to have a family out of fear. It was through this show of affection that Pony finally realized which of her guesses from earlier was correct. Oh. This is your dad. Pony said in excitement, making the two momentarily freeze. Quickly unfreezing himself, All Might quickly responded. And no, it isn't what you're thinking. He told her in worry, not wanting any odd rumors to spread. Waving her hand as if to say not to worry, she smiled giddily as she found his nervousness to have been cute if he was not an adult but closer to their age. Oh, I understand, clearly her father who raised her wasn't her actual father. Don't worry, I will keep it a secret. Pony told him in response, making her misunderstanding of the situation even more clear. Himiko was about to respond despite being red-faced and embarrassed at the implication she was his secret love child. But quickly realized that it would require explaining to her friend the truth behind his identity and possibly one for all. So, she just chuckled nervously for the first time in her entire life and wrapped her arms around him again. That's right, this is my actual biological father. Himiko said, giving the only response she realistically could while being blindsided by this. This however was the metaphoric straw that broke the camel's back, as All Might coughed up a bit up BLD. Are you okay? Pony exclaimed in worry, seeing her friend's father cough up BLD for seemingly no reason. Quickly defusing the situation before she tried to call for an ambulance, he spoke up quickly with a partial lie. No need to worry, it is just a side effect of my quirk. Lucky Himiko didn't get this from me. He told her, despite Aizawa thinking he was incapable of lying or reading a room properly. Toshinori Yagi indeed knew when to use his brain and caught on quickly as to why Himiko agreed with the misconception. Though he was still embarrassed to do so in this situation. "I will let you two have a few more minutes together, and don't worry, sir. I will make sure to have her back throughout this whole tournament. Your daughter is a really good friend," she told them, bowing before she left to go to their waiting room, knowing he would be fine and deciding a few more minutes to talk with her dad alone was only appropriate. After the young American girl had walked out of earshot, the two expressed the prominent thought at the forefront of their minds. "Midnight and Mirko are going to be so pissed at me when I tell them about this." All Might spoke first, already mentally preparing himself to take a kick to the face. "I am in so much trouble when they found out the mess I helped make." Himiko responded, knowing she should expect to be grounded for at least a week. UA Sports Festival. West Tunnel. Hitoshi Shinso was not expecting to make it so far, even after teaming up with a hero course student. It made it even harder to believe as the partner he was stuck with choosing was an energetic idiot who apparently was made useless after using his quirk only once. Yet the two of them passed to the third round, where they now had to face a recommended student and the class president of the 1B hero course. "We are totally going to kick their butts and win to fight Maple," Denki Kaminari declared, pumping his fists in the air, not noticing his partner rolling his eyes. "Yeah, right, it is going to be a challenge and a half to beat these two, let alone beat that Maple girl. But at least we can show off what we can do, and I might be able to get into the hero course," Shinso thought, barely able to hold back his snarky comments with the idiot beside him, hoping to get this over with soon. His thoughts would not go much further than that as his partner pulled him up out of his seat. "Come on, man, no need to be so down about our first fight," Kaminari said to him, wanting to cheer up his partner before they got into the fight. With a sigh he spoke up about an idea he had. "If we are going to fight to win, then listen to my plan as it will likely be our only shot," Shinso told the electric quirk user, seeing the confusion on their face. UA Sports Festival. East Tunnel. Itsuka Kendo and Setsuna Tokage were confident to say the least, and it was well deserved as far as most were concerned. One of them was a first-class martial artist and arguably the best close combat expert in their class at UA, as the few who could fight her as an equal did so using raw strength. The other one was a recommended student, which meant that a pro hero had recognized her capabilities even before training at UA. As for their opponents, between one of them being only useful for one attack and the other being a general ed student, we should be good, Tokage said to Kendo, who was worried for a reason the lizard girl could not understand. As far as she was concerned, this first round was in the bag, and their real challenge would happen in the next round against Maple. "No," Kendo said bluntly with her hands still crossed, as she rested her chin on them and her elbows on her thighs. "No," Tokage repeated in a questioning tone, surprised at the strong martial artist's reservations about their opponents. "No," Kendo repeated, letting out a sigh. Rubbing her temples as she got up, she continued. "It won't be as simple as you think. After all, we have no idea what that general education course student can really do. On top of that, they are partnered with Kaminari, who can finish off our team just grabbing us if they knock one of us out of the ring first," she explained to her partner, seeing realization dawn on her face. "Well, he has us and not in the good way," Tokage said, still able to crack a joke, even a dirty joke despite the shock of having this pointed out. Granted, she recovered quickly and began smiling as she saw the look on Kendo's face, which is what she aimed for half the time. "How many times do I have to tell you to keep your dirty mouth quiet?" Kendo yelled at her partner, who was now laughing at her embarrassed face. The embarrassed face came about from Kendo imagining Kaminari dropping his pants at the start of the fight. Luckily she cut off the mental image quickly before she imagined any worse. Though this raised an unspoken question between the two girls, and any outsiders watching or perhaps reading this exchange somehow. Who is the true pervert in this situation? Kendo, who imagined the scenario playing out, or Tokage, who purposely tried to put the image in the mind of Kendo. UA Sports Festival. Center field. The crowd was really buzzed after the previous fight they saw, so expectations were on the high side. This was despite knowing that one of the four was a general education student. As a matter of fact, a certain ambassador who once was a UA student was silently cheering for the young man. This sight was something the 18-plus hero was liking, as she was all for Nizu expanding the general education course. Considering how many of the general education students went on to get prominent jobs that were helpful in some way to heroes as a whole. It was an investment well worth the time as well as effort to teach so many students outside of the hero and other related courses like business and support. Alright people, I know full well you have high expectations of our students. So, let's show those kids a proper welcome to the battlefield. Midnight said to the crowd, making them cheer even louder than they were just a moment ago. Confirming that both sides were ready via her earpiece, she went on to call up the students. Coming from the Western Tunnel, a pair of boys who will shock your minds with how determined they are. Denki Kaminari and Hitoshi Shinso. She declared as the boys walked through, with the latter of the two looking like how Aizawa does whenever he has to deal with the media. Even so, despite his cold attitude to them, the audience still cheered for him. Stepping up from the Eastern Tunnel, two girls who are from among the top of the first years and ready to show you all some serious girl power. Itsuka Kendo and Setsuna Tokage. Midnight called out, as Tokage waved to the crowd with an over-the-top enthusiasm clearly meant to joke around, while Kendo just walked forward with a strained smile. Something was telling the 18-plus hero that she was going to have a strong time getting used to the fans once she graduates, assuming she doesn't loosen up in the next 3 years. Once the two teams were ready, she nodded to them both and started the countdown. Begin. She declared, and the students did as Kaminari ran forward. Surprising everyone who understood Kaminari abilities, the two girls especially who were fighting him. They had no choice but to duck out of the way, but this was by no means due to a lack of ability to fight directly on their part. But because as much as both the girls wanted to just grab him and throw him out of the ring, they could not really risk touching him. This was due to his quirk being able to immediately take down either one of them if they got hit by his quirk directly. As such a close combat fighter like Kendo and Tokage, who would need to use her full body to push him out if he could still resist, were at a significant disadvantage until they took him out of the fight. Unfortunately for them, they were not that fortunate as Kaminari was not letting up on Kendo. This meant that Setsuna had to fight Shinso by herself, which to Kendo's worries, was the correct cause to worry about. While she was trying to avoid Kaminari grabbing hold of her, assuming he was not releasing it in a wide-range attack to avoid his partner, something else was occurring with her partner. Setsuna had made use of her flight abilities to quickly get past Kamakiri, going for Shinso. The person she was going to prove to Kendo was not the major threat that the martial artist thought he was. That she was right for not considering the general education student the minor threat he was compared to Kaminari with his one-shot electricity attack. "Hope you're ready, eyebags, 'cause I'm about to dash," Setsuna called out to Shinso, getting interrupted by him halfway through. "Hey Lizard Beach, you mind lowering just your head so I can at least shut you up with my crotch?" Shinso said to her, beating her at her game of antagonizing the opponent with trash talk. Due to his quirk needing to get someone to respond to his question. He had learned how to read people well enough to figure out how to trigger most people to respond to him no matter what. For a few seconds, both Setsuna and the audience froze up at what he said. Even the teachers in the booth were shocked into silence, which was extremely rare for Mirko. After a few seconds of floating in place mouth agape, she finally spoke up in response to him. The worst thing she could have done in this situation. "You son of a beach. I'm really going to F you up now, you little di-eyed dash," she said, getting cut off before she could insult him back, zoning out like all of his usual victims of his quirk. "Now go and touch the grass outside of the ring. After that, I want you to bark like a dog," he told her, eliminating her and adding the dog part because he knew what her insult was going to be. As well as wanting to punish her for crossing what he thought was a line to not cross for what he did or say. To the surprise of the audience, and for Kendo it was after finding out through the announcement, she did exactly what she did. Setsuna had been eliminated, she also barked like a dog, and I hope that was properly recorded for me later. Power loader. Midnight declared loudly but made sure to say the second half much more quietly as it was a personal request to the support course teacher. He just texted to tell you no and that he won't even dignify your personal request by responding directly to you. Eraserhead told the stadium through his microphone, making the audience laugh a little at this dry retort to her weird request. When Kendo heard the announcement of her partner's defeat, she stopped for a moment in confusion. This gave Kaminari just the chance he needed to catch up to her. "Got you now?" Kaminari said, grinning, shocking her as she quickly turned her focus back to him, but not quick enough. "Aawa." Kendo yelled as she spasmed due to the literal shock before it ended and she passed out, with Setsuna being confused after Cementos went over to snap her out of the mind control. Letting her know what happened, which as you would expect. What the actual F just happened? Setsuna yelled out in pissed-off confusion, just missing Shinso as he led a mostly brain-dead Kaminari back to their waiting room. I think it is safe to say that the audience is a bit confused. Young Mind giving a brief explanation of his quirk to start off before I explain the fighting and talking, they did? Mirko asked him, knowing how to explain the actions of the students but not the quirk itself. Letting out a sigh, he figured it was better that way than just leaving it all up to one of them only. To explain the basics of his quirk type to everyone. It is an emitter type with the ability to control others if certain conditions are met. As you just witnessed and how Mirko will explain. Aizawa told the audience, not needing to say much more due to Mirko. He also had to keep it vague so as not to spell it out for the densest of students to be fair to Shinso. As he just said, it was a mind control quirk that caused her to numbly do as he said and based on what happened before she froze up. Which is why he insulted her, by doing so she dropped her guard and did not strike him down swiftly as she should have. Mirko told them, pointing out the first instance where she went wrong with fighting him. As for the trash talk itself. Mirko continued, now getting to the more strategic part of the fighting. Getting your opponent upset to get them to be reckless leaving an opening is a fair tactic to use. Tokage herself was the one that started the trash talking as well, so no one better give Shinso SHT for doing it to a girl. You got that? She told the crowd, yelling at the end to make sure no one made light of female heroes just for being female. Focus Mirko, focus. Aizawa reminded her, before she snapped and went on a tangent. I know. Mirko responded to him, rolling her eyes. Clearing her throat, she continued where she left off. As for Kaminari and him chasing Kendo, due to his quirk having the power to hit multiple targets but not control who he hit. As well as Shinso seeming like an easy target in the eyes of the inexperienced Tokage. They came up with an overall good strategy. She said, giving both boys the credit they were due for that planning they did. Or more likely just Shinso. Isolate both and take advantage of Shinso's unknown quirk to take one of them out. While Kaminari took the other out along with himself due to his max output, or rather near max output to be able to attack only Kendo. This strategy took into account that Kaminari would be useless after taking down one of them and did so very easily by making sure to eliminate at least one of the two girls before he attacked. Mirko said, making it clear they were more than just lucky as some ignorant people may say. Keep in mind that with his support gear this would have been a completely different fight for Kaminari. But due to that limitation, as well as his current gear focused on using his quirk to communicate via a long distance or jamming other communication himself. It would not help with the fight but would be useful as an intern when helping to rescue civilians or cut off villains from outside contact once cornered. Aizawa spoke up, making sure to point this out so the heroes would not think he was useless idiot who could only use a single attack before needing to be carried away. UA Sports Festival. General audience seating area. Watching from the stands was a similar-looking woman to Shinso, smirking like a cat that managed to finally catch the canary. Unlike the executive and the assistant he brought with him, no one else except the MDM president herself knew she was here. This was to make sure Nizu would not discover she came here, just in case she needed to try and kidnap izukumidoriya herself. So, she was given a false ID and bank account for buying her ticket to blend in with the audience as well to hide her tracks back to the HPSC if they caught her. The fact that the DMN rodent made the president resort to this shows how important that boy is for both sides, she thought with a slight bitterness, upset that she had to be the babysitter for that obnoxious gorilla. Soon you'll see why I enjoy controlling others, that is if you want to win, they murmured to themselves, annoyed by his refusal to stick to the shadows like her and want to be a limelight hero. Unlike him, she accepted the fact that she was going to be called evil due to her quirk. The only reason she even had him was because the previous president of the HPSC felt her quirk was useful. So, a stronger variation would naturally be even more useful for the HPSC as quirks grew stronger with each generation. Though it did get her promoted quicker than if she worked that whole time, so it wasn't a waste of her time to give BRTH to him. But if he was more compliant with the HPSC then it would have been better for her, but the ungrateful runt still couldn't accept his role in life. Good luck boy, assuming the religious nutcase doesn't make her go crazy, you attempting to control her just might. Try not to get squished by her, she said in a whisper with a sort of glee at the idea of her killing him and what it could do for her career. If he does die, the HPSC will finally succeed in destroying Nizu's reputation with the people and get them permanent control over the girl. Assuming the government doesn't insist on killing her to keep the public safe. Planning to be nearby but not looking suspicious by making it look like she was going to the bathroom. She walked into the hallways, with a relaxed stride as though they were just going to buy some snacks, and not be someone's backup for a kidnapping. Sorry dear, she told a girl with red hair as she bumped into, her habit of how she used her quirk kicking in. Not caring enough for the red-haired girl and her blonde-haired male companion to remember, yet that is. UA Sports Festival. West Tunnel. Resting her head on the well-toned but still nicely thick thighs of Momo, was everyone's adorable final boss mascot girl Maple. Letting out a pleased hum with closed resting eyes, Maple was enjoying Momo stroking her hair, all without knowing the look on the heiress's face. Fortunately for the rich girl, Maple was too spaced out herself to notice it. As for the look on Momo's face, she was so happy that she had a stupid-looking grin stretching ear to ear. A little drool dripped from her mouth, so she had to regularly wipe it away with her free hand. Bright scarlet blush covering, not dusting, covering her cheeks. Her eyes looked completely spaced out. As well as a steady deep panting. For Momo Yaoyorozu, this was heaven right now. Cuddling with a cute girl like Maple in a private room away from any noise was practically a dream. Feeling the warm breath of Maple come out over her legs was incredibly STMLTNG for her, and if anyone ruined it right now for her she probably would. Oh, it's Izuku. Maple called out as she got a message from Izuku. Probably kill them for it, but lucky for Izuku he was Maple's younger brother so she would restrain herself. Menu open. Maple called out, making a sliding motion with her hand as she went down to her messages. She would have used this to contact Sally, but the group and direct chat lines are disabled, so she had to form a party with Izuku to message him. What are you doing? Momo asked her, as it looked like Maple was just typing in the air like a mime pretending to be using a keyboard. To make a long story short, me and Izuku can communicate via our quirks by typing messages to each other. Maple told her partner, seeing his message and giving him the best advice she could. Momo for her part was confused as to how their quirks can be connected like that even though they are not BLD siblings. But figured it was best not to ask too many questions as they had a fight to participate in soon. After she responded to him, Maple noticed how red Momo's face was, becoming slightly concerned for her. Are you okay, Momo? Your face is red, she asked, stating why she was concerned. On closer inspection it also looked like she was doing some strong breathing earlier. Forgetting her own body temperature was hotter than Momo normally, Maple tried to test her temperature by putting her forehead to hers. Realizing it after a few seconds, she pulled her head back in embarrassment. Sorry about that. I forgot I am warmer than you are normally anyways. Maple told her, disheartened as she felt stupid forgetting how her new body works after being in it for over a year now. As for Momo, she was for her part of the conversation, shocked, but still happily smiling as she took in her scent just a moment ago. But she quickly recovered as soon as she heard Maple's sad tone, upon her realization and apologizing. No need to apologize, you're really affectionate normally so I am used to it. Momo told her, showing her composed and serene smile she always shows people. As for her inner and more true thoughts. Oh my god, she is cute. She is way too cute. I want to go home with her and comfort her all night long. Momo screams internally, not showing on her face how she was truly freaking out. You're the best, Emo-chan. Maple cried out as she threw herself onto the heiress, wrapping her in a hug as she nuzzled her neck. I think I can die happy now. Momo thought, forcing herself to not squeal directly into the ear of her affectionate partner right now. Maple then began mixing in kisses on the cheek here and there between nuzzles. Whether this started with Sally or Himiko is up for debate, but that is an issue to discuss another day. Yes, I can indeed die happy now. She thought, hugging her back and rubbing her cheek against the top of Maple head. UA Sports Festival. East Tunnel. Ibra Shiizaki and her partner Yuga Aoyama were getting ready for their fight, well Ibra was. Aoyama was sitting in the corner covering the sides of his head with his hands. In a vain attempt to pretend not to hear what she was saying or see what she was doing. As soon as they got to the room after eating lunch, she began practicing her exorcism. An odd sign to be sure, but Aoyama was ordered in advance to partner with her if possible. But when they got closer to their match time, she began praying and sprinkling what was apparently holy water on her vines. Maple. I will save you. That is beyond a shadow of a doubt and something I apologize for doing so in such a public manner. Ibra told herself within her mind as she went over the steps she was taught for the exorcism. It was rigorous and difficult, but she was finally ready to expel the demon taking advantage of the girl. It was no surprise to the religious girl that her half-hearted attempts did not work. How can I save her or even anyone for that matter if I am too afraid to risk my life? That is why. I will risk my life fighting that devil within you here and now in order to save you. She mentally exclaimed, her serious devotion to such a cause showing on her face in the form of a disturbed smile. Yuga Aoyama, seeing this, decided to finally approach his partner, however. When he asked her, he got the disturbing excuse of performing an exorcism and recommended he stay behind her for his safety. Which is why he was now cowering in the corner, desperately telling his MSTR via his thoughts about how she was more unstable than first appeared. All in hope he was listening in to him and would give him permission to abort this hellish mission. All for one lair. Checking on his spy before their battle, he was suddenly bombarded with screams of help. These screams almost knocked him out of his chair, but he luckily caught himself in time. What the hell is wrong with that boy? It is just one religious idiot. He said aloud to himself, not seeing why the girl would be more than just a little annoying. But upon hearing what the boy was describing, he could not help but get an ear-to-ear grin. If anyone could trigger a rampage it was that girl, but just in case, he should make sure the teachers cannot intervene, and the girl does not chicken out either or sees reason too early. A minor telepathic suggestion to both teachers and students to make the teachers hesitate in making judgment call, as well as cause the student to not stop should be enough. At a certain church. Though it was an intensive 2 weeks before the sports festival, I had managed to teach her how to perform an exorcism. Especially since it was my first time teaching anyone that. It was not something that was done every day, if at all still done nowadays, but it was clear that the Maple girl needed saving. Given how her mothers would react if I approached them, against my better judgment as an adult I decided to leave it up to Shiizaki. Dear God, give her strength to defeat that devil and save the girl that is their vessel. I said as I clasped my hands together, with the rest of the congregation doing the same. Yes, they had all gathered today to pray for Shiizaki as she attempted to save the girl. Which meant this was one of the very few times I would allow for a TV to be placed in the main hall of the church. UA Sports Festival. Center Field. Despite being excited for the fight, the audience had become weary the moment they realized Maple was up next. But it was not solely due to her, but rather her opponent, as she had already shown to be highly religious. You think the religious girl is going to set her off? Probably, man. I just hope we are not in the direction of her fire breath. Should we leave our seats before we get hurt? I don't know, usually the teachers can restrain the students. But after her brother's fight I'm not so sure. Why did they even let her participate? She could kill any of the other students with a single attack. Such notions were quickly but quietly spreading as a whisper, well, quiet in terms of the individual person's volume. But since everyone else who wasn't talking was in a tense silence, it was quite clear for everyone to hear. Before Nizu could relay an announcement over the intercom, Mirko beat them to it. Your dumbass better shut the hell up. If you keep talking SHT about my daughter, I am going to shove my foot up your dash. Mirko started yelling but was fortunately shut up by an equally angry Aizawa wrapping his scarf around her mouth. Coughing into his free hand to clear his throat, he spoke up more calmly but just as threatening as Mirko. Alright, let me make one thing clear to you all. No one bad-mouths my students without getting punished, so if you don't want me to drag your sorry asses out of the arena by my scarf, then keep your insults and accusations to yourselves, he told them all in a cold fury that was even more terrifying than Mirko yelling at them. Oh, okay. How about we begin introducing the contestants? I for one, cannot wait to see Shiozaki's and Yaoyorozu's pretty little asses shake it out there for us. Midnight said with a confident sultry smile. Successfully cutting the tension by cracking a joke about the girls about to step forward, while again drawing ire from the parents who questioned if she should be allowed to teach. With a bit of a huff, Mirko prepared herself to make the announcement as she shaked off Aizawa. Coming from the East Gate. A duo of confident sparkles and a holy garden. Ibra Shiizaki N. Yuga Aoyama. Mirko shouted as she started off strong but trailed off when she saw his face. It was a face of clear distress, though he was smiling, it was not his usual bright smile but a strained one as he waved to the audience. His partner, however, though not smiling, was also not in distress. If anything, the look on her face was a look of solemn determination, and given her opponent, no, surely even she wouldn't try that, would she? Needless to say, what little hope the teachers had for her behaving herself was down the drain at this point. Yeah, Maple is definitely going to go on a rampage. We're screwed, was more or less the same thought that collectively ran through the minds of the UA teaching staff. Walking forward, Ibra paid no mind to those around her, as her goal was before her. Once they got to the ring, she steadied her breathing one last time, ready to face her opponent. Coming from the West Gate. A pair of girls who, despite both needing to eat lots for their quirks, can still come across as ladylike and childlike respectively. One creates while the other destroys. Give it up for Momo Yaoyorozu and Maple Usajiyama. Mirko called out, getting at least a few cheers here and there for Maple. Naturally, the cult section of the stadium seats went wild upon hearing their introduction, supporting Maple with everything they had. Completely opposite to their opponents was Maple and Momo waving to the crowd. With Momo in particular having a look of utter bliss on her face as Maple had one arm wrapped around her non-waving arm. Maple had a regularly happy smile on her face, and though it faltered for a moment when she saw Shiizaki looking at her. Maple recovered the smile quickly. Momo, however, returned the glare to Shiizaki and was about to ask her why she was glaring at them like that. But the religious girl beat her to the punch. Starting today you will no longer corrupt and stuck your classmates like your partner standing beside. Prepare yourself Maple Usajiyama, or rather the devil that is slumbering within you. Shiizaki shouts, bringing the audience to a complete halt, filling the stadium with silence at what she said, well everyone except for corrupt. Stuck. All I have been doing was interacting with my friends normally. Though obvious it's different between the boys and girls. Maple responded, confused by the accusation as she was not a pervert like her new mother. Your interactions are clearly not normal. I bet you were doing perverted things to Yaoyorozu before leaving your waiting room. She responded in an exasperated and annoyed tone, unable to see how the girl had not realized it yet. Unless, the demon was affecting how she saw things. Truly the religious girl could not see any other reason why, as Maple was clearly no angel, or at least was not a vessel for one. But all we did was hug and embrace. Oh. I also got to use Momo lap as a pillow, which was a really nice experience. She also smelled really nice all of a sudden when I started doing so, which made me feel hot for some reason. It was kind of like Himiko when we cuddled together. Maple said in an unabashedly way, not realizing how what she said sounded like. While half the teaching staff was laughing at the groans and face palms of Midnight and Mirko, the audience had suddenly turned red. Not from any sort of injury, but because except for a small child, any middle schooler and up would not be able to stop themselves from imagining it. Shiizaki was red in the face with equal parts shock and embarrassment. All the while, Momo simply looked proud after Maple told everyone she liked her lap pillow. This pushed Shiizaki to snap once more. You really are a pervert on par with your harlot of a sadistic mother. Shiizaki was now practically screeching as she covered her chest and crotch with her arms and hands. Hey, is she referring to you or me? Mirko asked her wife nonchalantly over her mic. I think it is safe to say she means me, also she said harlot not hair. Midnight responded with a shake of her head at this, wondering between the two of why she even had to ask. I know, but it wouldn't be the first time someone called me a harlot just because of my rabbit quirk and the fact I wear a leotard. Mirko clarified, explaining why she thought the religious little SHT could have meant her. You know what, fair enough. Midnight responded after letting out a considerably long sigh. After a few minutes of calming them all down. Especially Momo, who made an actual handgun with her quirk before Midnight knocked it out of her hand with the WHP she had on her waist. They were finally ready. Begin. And begin they did, as the first thing Shiizaki did was grow thorns on her vines, while all but two she discreetly dug into the ground behind her. When Maple tried to counter the vines with her fire, Aoyama blasted it with his laser. Going through it and dispersing it as the laser forced to duck and stop her attack for a moment. That moment was what gave Shiizaki the chance to reach the pair of girls. As the sword Momo created to cut the vines was knocked out of her hands upon contact, this meant the heiress had to now try to create a new item. But given how her hands and legs were bound like a crucifix like her partner, the few hands-free options she had that also would not hurt the two of them as well needed time. Trying to break out of the vines with mouth now wrapped completely shut, Maple had no choice but to transform. The pain both her and her partner were feeling from the thorns really bothered Maple, as despite appearances, she had a low pain tolerance. But her quirk made her durable to the point that she never really feels pain anymore except for when she fought Silverwing during the UA attack. But considering Shiizaki had added sharp thorns to her vines, it was not a surprise that they managed to draw BLD, and burn. Yes, the burning sensation was when she began to hear it. The first voice she heard the day of the UA attack, the voice of the demon. Maple Mindscape. Seeing the look on the face of the girl with vines for hair, everyone knew what it meant. Looking at one another in worry, except the demon, they could not help but give a nervous chuckle. That was because the demon was fuming with anger at the hypocritical, whole-leaf girl. He and the angel may have different views, but at least she treated him with some respect. That beach is going to get her throat torn out, the demon screamed in absolute rage as he slammed his hands on the table, throwing his chair back due to his suddenness of standing up as well as the force he put into standing up. Machine King tried to restrain him, but given that the demon was the physically strongest of all of them as well as the largest aside from Hydra or the squid. Luckily for them, as the religious girl was beginning her exorcism, a seat began to appear behind the angel with her marker. With the angel beginning to glow, making the demon stop shaking his head as he knew what this meant. No. Demon said flatly, placing his hands on the table. Yes. Angel responded back, smiling at him with a knowing confidence how it would end. I said no. Demon responded to her response, reaffirming his unwillingness to budge on this. Sorry, but I am not the only one saying yes to me going. Angel said, now closing her eyes as she began to shine and break apart into very little particles, waving to the demon. No. Demon yelled out in an agonized wail as the angel finally got a seat and therefore a voice at the table. I will leave it to you, Machine King said as he nodded to the angel, who smiled and bowed to him. Stopping his struggle, the demon sighed in defeat at the fact that the angel was taking him fight away from him. UA Sports Festival. Center Field. Seeing BLD begin to drip from the students due to the thorns, as well as Maple seemingly burning. The teachers began to freak out, but as Midnight and Cementos tried to stop Shiizaki but were attacked. Not by a villain, but by the student they were trying to restrain. Stop this right now. Midnight yelled at the student, and both her and Cementos were wrapped from toe to neck in vines coming from the ground underneath. Luckily not the thorn variety. Well, there was a thorn on the tip to drill through the cement, but it was the only one. My apologies, Sensei, but if I am to save your daughter from her possession, then I cannot allow you to interfere. You will thank me after. Shiizaki said, wrapping the teacher's mouths shut. Nizu would have told her to stop, if he could, that is. The sound system for the announcer booth and all other devices outside of those aimed at the arena to capture the sound from the ring were turned off suddenly. No doubt it was also something the HPSC did, or hell, even All for One could have done so if he managed to get a criminal with a technopath quirk to do so for him. A blind spot the rodent principal was currently smacking himself for overlooking. Let us begin. Shiizaki said in a clear, yet disturbingly calm tone before making a cross sign with her hands and taking out the cross she wore around her neck from underneath her shirt. In the name of Jesus Christ, our God and Lord, Maple began to feel more pain and started convulse harder against her green, thorny restraints. Strengthened by the intercession of the Immaculate Virgin Mary, Mother of God, the audience and teachers began to snap out of their shocked stupors. Of blessed Michael the Archangel. Of the blessed apostles Peter and Paul and all the saints. And powerful in the holy authority of our ministry, we confidently undertake to repulse the attacks and deceits of the devil. God arises. Maple's bones could now be loudly and easily heard snapping. Her bones clearly showed being healed and realigned under her skin, causing it to wrinkle and squirm like a pile of worms, disturbing the audience due to the macabre sight. Mirko and Aizawa both ran down to the ring to try to stop both Shiizaki and Maple, who began showing signs of a full transformation. His enemies are scattered, and those who hate him flee before him. As smoke is driven away, so are they driven. As wax melts before the fire, so the wicked perish at the presence of God. The audience began to vomit or even pass out as Maple had nearly twisted her head around 180 degrees while resisting the demon. Behold the cross of the Lord, flee bands of enemies. Shiizaki began increasing in fervor as she spoke. May thy mercy, Lord, descend upon us. A smile began growing on the face of the previously solemn-looking girl. We drive you from us, whoever you may be. Unclean spirits. She began to trail off for a moment as she saw Maple glow white, but got back to it at a slower pace than before. All satanic powers, all infernal invaders, Maple hair turning from black to golden blonde, and her eyes from dark gray to a sky blue. This gave Shiizaki a bad feeling and caused Eraserhead and Mirko stop, as what they saw next left them completely bewildered as to how it happened. All wicked legions. Assemblies and sects. In the name and by the power of our Lord Dash, and Shiizaki finally froze as Maple grew wings and a halo of pure light that floated above her head. In just a moment, but what seemed like eternity, a wall of light appeared around Maple and Momo that originated from Maple herself as the center. As Momo wounds began healing, the thorn dug into her by Shiizaki began being pushed out until her vines loosened completely. Dropping the two girls, with Maple, or rather the angel in control of Maple's body, caught a stunned Momo holding the heiress against their bosom. Touring to face Shiizaki after she landed, the angel said one and only one thing to Shiizaki. How shameful. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more such crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Kuji17 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.